Hello and welcome. You're watching UATV News with me, Ksenia Buhai. Let's start with the latest developments. The new quarantine rules to be introduced in Ukraine. The government has amended its restriction order. A yellow or green COVID certificate will contain information about vaccinations, the most recent negative test result, or information about recovery. The yellow certificate will contain information about the first vaccination and the green one about the complete course of vaccine. At the yellow level of epidemic threat, educational institutions will work if at least 80% of employees have yellow or green COVID certificates. If the red level of threat is announced, all employees should have green COVID certificates. Besides, in case of the red level of threat, owners of green COVID certificates will be able to attend events, cultural and entertainment venues, shopping malls, cafes, markets, gyms and swimming pools. At the same time, the owners of facilities will make the final decision on the provision of services to the vaccinated or to adhere to all quarantine restrictions. Meanwhile, experts of the National Health Service of Ukraine suggest on how to increase the level of vaccine awareness and motivate people to undergo vaccination. All the details in our next story.
One of the methods to engage people in the vaccination campaign is to work with problem groups. According to experts, least vaccinated groups in Ukraine are people over 80 and under 30.
There is a need here for such a proactive action of drawing attention, especially with older people, and they give credit to medics. As far as we are talking about the middle-aged and young people, here the main argument is they have to work. As soon as the quarantine unveils, we say that vaccinated people will be among those who are more likely to be admitted to the working place. And this is the most convincing argument.
On top of that, there are fewer willing to get a jab among those who had not yet contracted COVID-19, while experts highlight the view of those who have changed their minds may be game-changing.
To change the paradigm, people who have previously belonged to these groups, ones who may later share their personal stories about how their mind has changed, they must be one of the most important and effective channels of communication. This is the only successful way to pierce this bubble.
According to experts, despite the wide circulation of anti-vaccination fakes, the majority of population of the large cities still stand in favor of vaccination.
Well, the situation has happened in such a way that those who don't get a vaccine should be barred from the working places. And I think this is the right thing to do, as we have no alternative now.
I cannot do a vaccine due to my illness. My hematologist forbade me to do this for now anyway. Well, I would get vaccinated if I had the opportunity. I had to leave to another country. I think vaccination is a good thing to do, and sooner or later I would have made it anyway. Also, there was such an opportunity.
At the moment, almost 6 million citizens have received their jabs in Ukraine. 5 million of them have taken 2 doses of vaccine. Reported by Nick Starkov, Danilo Kobza, UATV News.
25 million people will be vaccinated against coronavirus in Ukraine by the end of the year. This is almost the entire adult population of the country. This was stated by Prime Minister of Ukraine, Denis Shmyhal. It will be possible to do this thanks to the high rates of immunization. About 1 million people in Ukraine receive vaccines every week. Also, the state has a sufficient supply of vaccines, 10 million doses from 4 manufacturers. Now everyone has access to vaccinations, and the government can only stimulate the Ukrainians to immunize. The Prime Minister called the rules of quarantine zones with privileges for the vaccinated, to be correct from the point of view of the economy.
Vaccination in Ukraine is not slowing down. People are vaccinated, and this is a voluntary process in our country. The resolution on quarantine will be published later. We are changing our approach to quarantine in the red, orange and yellow zones. That is, the decree does not toughen the conditions, to some extent even improves them. Today, the state has given everyone the opportunity to be vaccinated.
Ukraine has to turn into a flexible military stage, such as Israel. This was stated by Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine Dmytro Kuleba in an interview with the British newspaper The Independent. According to head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Kyiv no longer believes the assurances of support from Western countries. The minister stressed that Ukraine has come to an understanding that it can rely only on itself.
This country has learned a number of bitter lessons that Western promises are likely unfulfilled. But do not believe in promises. The circumstances leave no choice. Army, diplomacy and the Ukrainian people, that's what we have to survive.
Ukrainian side of the Joint Center for the Control and Coordination of Ceasefire Issues handed over an official note to the representatives of the OSCE mission due to the aggravation on the contact line in Donbass. On September 11th and 12th, attacks by illegal armed groups increased. As a result, 4 Ukrainian servicemen were killed and 13 were wounded. The appeal emphasized that illegal armed groups are employing drones, weapons prohibited by the Minsk agreements, and continue shelling the houses of civilians.
An official note was prepared for the head of the OSCE mission in which we told about further prevention of violation of the ceasefire regime, expressed concern about the passivity of the joint monitoring mission in the course of these criminal actions by the illegal armed formations of the Russian Federation. In just 2 days, we sent 109 notes showing the fact of violations and the fact of the death and injury of our servicemen.
The United States will fulfill all its obligations to support Ukraine in resisting Russian aggression. This was assured by the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken during the hearings in the Foreign Affairs Committee of the U.S. House of Representatives. According to Antony Blinken, the American side reaffirmed its intentions to President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky during his visit to Washington 2 weeks ago. The current joint military exercises of Russia and Belarus legitimize the presence of Russian troops on the territory of Belarus. According to Ukrainian military expert Mikhailo Protula, after their completion, military equipment and part of the contingent may remain in the Republic. The exercises West 2021 began on September 10th. In total, 200,000 servicemen, about 80 aircraft and helicopters, up to 760 units of military equipment take part in them. According to the official data by the Belarusian authorities, 2,500 Russian military men will take part in the exercises on the territory of the country.
Покинут ли они территорию Беларуси после?
The question is, are they going to leave the territory of Belarus after the exercises? Whether the equipment that Russia introduced leaves the territory of Belarus? It is also a question. Maybe, as it was in spring, a large amount of Russian equipment was concentrated on the borders of Ukraine. The equipment remained, the troops left, but the vehicles and techniques remained. That is, Putin shows that there may be tension and he is ready.
The Bureau of Economic Security of Ukraine will start working by the end of fall. This was stated by the director of the new service. The organization is designed to deal with the strategic fight against crimes in the economic sector, in particular with money laundering. Also, the Bureau will take over part of the powers of the liquidated fiscal service. It is noted that the Bureau structure was developed in accordance with European norms and includes civil control to prevent corruption.
We expect to be able to identify the more serious risks that exist in the economy through this analytical approach. Yes, indeed, the investigation of criminal proceedings will continue. There will be compensation for losses, that's understandable, but I put an emphasis on the analytical component. I emphasize that this bureau is important today. It works with a new model, an analytical model that increases the system's ability to resist negative influence. Today, the capacity of the system is less than 50%. This is very important that this body will do it.
The mortgage will be even cheaper, but despite the fact that more than 800 families have already tried the presidential program, affordable mortgage 7%, Ukrainians are still in no hurry to purchase apartments. Will mortgage become cheaper, and whether it is safe to buy housing on credit, our correspondent found out.
According to National Bank of Ukraine, almost 3 and 5 times more mortgage agreements than usual were concluded by Ukrainians over the past 6 months. This growth is associated with the presidential 7% mortgage program. Despite the availability, people are still afraid to buy housing on credit.
Well, who is not afraid? It's better to earn money and then buy at once, right? But no one will do this because everyone is too lazy to save money.
It had my interest, but the procedure for taking a loan is a bit of a complicated story. I was interested in this issue, but it is not yet available for me.
The Ukrainian government has decided to make mortgages even cheaper. For this, the state mortgage institution and the Ukrainian financial housing company will be merged. This will simplify the process of obtaining loans and expand the search for real estate. They will also issue government bonds worth almost $750 million. They will be converted into shares of the created structure.
After the completion of the merger, we are preparing to issue government bonds in the amount of up to $750 million in order for the mortgage programs to be available to as many Ukrainians as possible. All these products will help Ukrainian families finally be able to buy their own homes with affordable mortgages, as they do in developed countries.
According to experts, the more transactions on the real estate market take place, the cheaper the mortgage becomes. After all, the demand creates the offer. However, in order to attract more clients, they advise to simplify the rules for buying a newly built housing.
When some 4 or 5 years pass, the volume of issued loans reaches its critical mass. Then they will be able to service themselves. That is, the interest paid on loans will be able to block the demand for loans. And then we will already see a decrease in the credit resource, as it happens in European countries to 3.5% and somewhere even up to 2.5%.
Buying a home at 7% also attracts many Ukrainians. According to the Entrepreneurship Development Fund, over the past week, 26 people have received mortgages. These are mainly young families with the average income of up to $800-900 per month.
The average loan amount which is issued by our bank is $30,000, and if, for example, there is a client who applies to a loan of $30,000 for 20 years, then his first payment will be some $300, taking into account both the repayment of interest and the repayment of the loan body, and the last payment will make only $120.
In total, since the beginning of the presidential program Affordable Mortgage 7%, 811 loans have been issued for almost $20 million, reported by Nick Starkov, Vlada Tsurkan, UATV News.
Another type of passport is now displayed on the Diia portal for state services. These are non-biometric foreign passports issued after 2015. However, the digital ones are not suitable for traveling abroad. According to Ministry of Digital Transformation of Ukraine, before that, Ukrainians could use ID and biometric foreign passports in Diia. According to Minister Mikhailo Fedorov, a number of new social functions will be added to the application in the nearest future.
We are preparing the Diia summit. We are going to present a large number of services related to receiving subsidies, utility bills and social services. In a few weeks, we will launch the following service in Diia. It will be available to all users. Information will come if someone will try to take out a loan for you. You will receive a notification about which bank is checking your credit history and why. Therefore, Diia application is about convenience and security, and the number of services will constantly increase.
That's all for today. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter pages.